Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald at the Illinois State Capitol, standing in the east wing of the Capitol at what would have been the entrance to the Capitol right above the grand staircase. Well, this building has undergone a lot of changes over the years. Now that space is part of the governor's office. But as you look behind me at the rotunda and the west wing, another exciting change has just gone on here, the renovation of the west wing, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a tour of that today with Richard Alsup, who happens to be the Capitol architect. Richard, you've been here about 4 years.
Correct.
This project has taken just about all of that 4 years, hasn't it?
That's right. In fact, it was the first thing on my plate when I got here. They said, we're about to start the west wing renovation of the Capitol building. That's your project. Take it and run with it.
What a time to get hired.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is a huge, huge project.
Well, it's a unique position, first of all, in terms of an architect of the Capitol position. I mean, there's one in D.C. Who is the architect of the nation's capital. But for Illinois, it's quite an honor to be a part of that process.
No kidding.
Yes.
We mentioned it took, I think we mentioned, it took 2 years to design the project.
Correct.
It took another 2 years to finish the project. And it was only last fall that we were actually able to open this space up for business again.
That's right. People are back inside their spaces now, and really all we're doing now is just some simple punch list items, making sure the paint's been touched up and all the light sockets are working properly. So that's really just where we are.
Yeah. We're going to do as best we can in 30 minutes to show the before and after of all this. But as we look back out over here, we can see, okay, we look across the rotunda, and we just came up what would have been the original grand staircase to another grand staircase which goes up to the second floor.
Correct.
And that is the west wing, and that's what we're going to be talking about during this program. Huh? Okay, let's go take a look. Richard, back before this opened, if we were walking this way, boom, we would hit a wall right about here, wouldn't we?
That's correct.
This would have been all closed off.
Yes, the entire west wing, because we moved everybody out of the building, and because of the renovation we were doing, it required that the space be completely blocked off from anybody just wandering in the site. So all the way from the basement through the third and fourth floor, it was completely closed off.
It's completely open now. We officially enter the west wing, and this is all either new, and we're going to point out what's new, or polished, cleaned, repainted. Everything here has been touched.
That's right. Yeah, this was a major renovation for the State Capitol building. Really unlike anything that's been done since the building was first renovated by the second architect of the Capitol back in the 1880s. So yeah, this is an historic renovation we did.
There are new things too that have never been here before, and I'm talking now about these ladies that are on the banisters of the grand stairway. These were in the original plans.
That's correct. The original architect, Alfred P. Kennard, actually designed these maidens for the State Capitol building, had them produced. They were brought to the Capitol building and thought to be too risque to install.
Is that right?
So they were sent to Iowa, designed by the same architect, Alfred P. Kennard. And it's now sitting at the base of their grand stairs.
So what you had to do was you had to get a plaster cast or something made of these so you could duplicate them.
That's right. We went to Iowa, did a 3D laser scan of the maidens that are there, recreated them, and then, of course, installed them here in our building.
Well, they're beautiful. And, you know, most people that's not risque.
Well, not these days anyway.
Yeah,
exactly.
Of course, I mentioned everything had to be cleaned and touched up. But if we look at the next level up there, people that know the Capitol know that used to be the entrance to the press area.
Correct.
And those were glass doors, and the three middle panels weren't there at all. They were doorways.
That's right. When we removed the mezzanine between the second and third floor, it meant that we had to do something with the stairs that were there at the mezzanine level. So we did remove the doors that were there. We had to shop to find the marble infill to close up the hole. And by all intents, I think it looks nice.
We're going to see over and over and over again that you had to find matching marble, matching stone, matching this, matching that.
Correct.
I don't know how you do it, but it's somehow available. You know the sources to go to.
We do. In fact, we had a very talented architectural and engineering group who were our consultants for this job. It was really their responsibility to find them. We approved the samples, but I really can't say enough about the contribution they had in this renovation.
And then just above that is this remarkable mural which is topped by this barrel vault ceiling of glass, which lets natural light in. This was also a problem because not long ago there was a flood up in the attic, right? And so this mural, which really kind of defines this whole space, it was falling apart.
Yeah, in 2011, we had a sprinkler pipe leak in the attic, which did cause damage to this mural. And this mural is original to the building. I mean, it was painted on plaster in the 1870s. So it's a priceless part of the building.
Oh, man.
Its size alone is astounding. So during the renovation, we completely isolated this painting from the rest of the space. It had its own humidity control, its own HVAC system, and of course, when the scaffolding came down, we did try and conserve what we could of the painting, and it's come a long way from where it was.
Oh, it's remarkable. And as we go up these stairs and go into some of these buildings, we'll see in cases where there were a lot of mezzanines that had been put in here, I guess to create office space over the years.
Correct.
Those have been removed.
At least in the West Wing. We
Right,
still
in the
have
West
them in other
Wing.
wings.
Right.
Correct.
But this is the first of the back to the guts of the building
Yes.
restorations,
Right.
and the other wings will look like this when they're done, right?
Correct. It's really what we're trying to get this building back. You know, this was more than just a mechanical renovation. It was electrical, it was plumbing, it was ADA and life safety,
Yeah.
and it was architectural. And the architectural portion meant we wanted to get back to the period of significance, which was the original architect's intent for the building. And the mezzanines were never a part of his original
Right.
concept.
Right. Okay. Well, let's go up and see some more. Okay.
Right.
Well, Richard, this is what Senate. This is the senators and Senate staff, huh?
Correct. Senate Republican staff.
Senate
and
Republicans.
senators.
We just walked into a space that I'm finding kind of incredible myself, because the colors in here absolutely explode when you look up.
Well, and you got to remember the history of the space. It started out as a state museum, became the state library, which is when all the ceiling painting really to this level occurred. There would have been book stacks along the east side of the space here, which is where we now have office space. And this was always a very public space for the citizens of Illinois. So to come back and recreate that feeling is one of the bigger accomplishments we had in
Yeah,
this
no
West Wing
kidding.
renovation.
If we look back over our shoulders and to the far wall, we can see those arched windows. Those were covered up, huh?
That's correct. Yeah. When we started the renovation, they were all covered up with plaster. They were painted. Everything was painted white. So
Even the ceiling.
correct. Even the
White.
ceiling.
Oh,
Yes,
what a crime.
I know.
Oh, Lord. And of course, we've got the eagles and we've got the symbolism. And there's a lot of gingerbread here, but there's also a lot of really significant stuff.
That's right.
And the chandeliers, these massive chandeliers, and we're going to see these throughout these rooms. These were gone. We had chandeliers like this at one point, but they were gone.
That's right. That's right. They were replaced with something that was non-original. And again, the company that made these fixtures have all the old catalogs. They know what was in the space, and so that's what they've recreated here.
They recreated all
Yes.
these chandeliers.
Correct.
In this room alone, I think I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, and some rooms have as many as 6 or 9 in them.
That's right. That's right.
Remarkable.
And what you really don't see in something like this is the fact that this entire wing is now fully sprinklered. So it's a very safe building, but if you just make out some of the detail in some of the panels, you'll begin to see where the drop heads are concealed up in the ceiling.
You have to know where to look,
You have
because
to know
I
where to
can't
look.
see those.
And
Yeah.
that was part of the intent here.
That's
And
terrific.
Of course, the ceiling panels themselves are mostly done on canvas. That way, if we ever have a need to repair, we can just sweat the canvas back, make the repair, and then put the canvas back without having to repaint anything. So putting it on canvas was cheaper to start originally, and it's going to be cheaper to maintain over.
Yeah,
over the life of the
and
building.
you and these restoration specialists were able to find out what sort of pattern was up there. It wasn't just, oh, let's pick a pattern.
That's
You
correct.
were able to find out what was there.
Exactly what was there. And the way they did that, they would go back, they would chemically remove all the layers of paint till they got to the base plaster level. Then they would go forward one, and that would be the pattern that was on the ceiling originally. And they would find enough of a pattern to create these stencils, and that's what they would create their canvases out
Yeah.
of.
Wow. I got to see more.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, Richard, this is really a good example of the kind of work that you had to do to bring this back. We're in a House Republican staff office area here, which it was before. But if people who know the Capitol know the press room, the blue room where press conferences were held was above us. So imagine, if the viewer can, that there would have been a ceiling here about 8 or 9 feet up. Sure. And then there would have been then the blue room, and then another false ceiling.
Correct.
And all of that had to be taken out if you were going to bring this back to its original structure.
That's exactly right. And there also would have been an elevator opening onto the blue room level that
Right.
we had to redo. So we had to take out that floor in the elevator, reconfigure the way the elevator buttons work to remove the mezzanine from there. So a lot of little things just to make something like this
So
work
it
out.
had been decades since anybody had seen this ceiling.
That's correct. That's correct.
And so you all tear out the old ceiling, the drop ceiling as well, and the mezzanine, and you get up there and you say, okay, let's find out what colors these were, and you go through that whole exercise again and recreate what was here. It's remarkable.
That's right. And this originally would have been the law library, so it makes sense that they would have been an ornate ceiling. This is the way the justices would have entered the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court was in this building.
Really? They
So-
would have entered their chambers through the library, through the law library.
Through the walkway between this wall and the
okay.
law library. And their personal chambers were down on the first floor, so they would have walked up a set of stairs and into 212 from this space here.
And we're looking at these bays, I guess you call them bays now, these square coffer features in the ceiling. And we see 3 bays, but actually what happened was you had to move these around because you added stairways for safety purposes.
That's
so these actually had to, this one directly over our head had to be created.
That's right. We essentially shifted the 9 square grid to the east 1 bay, because this would have been, again, a walkway to Supreme Court chambers, and it wouldn't have been this ornate. But we did have a 9 square bay this ornate, so we just shifted everything down because of the stair we added on the west side of this here.
And so, and you had to create all of the ornamentation which surrounds this coffer.
That's
there.
correct.
Wow.
Yeah, we had to make molds of the coffers that were there to recreate them over here.
Okay, Richard, we can't leave this subject matter without at least looking at a restroom. I mean, and of course, this wouldn't have always been a restroom. When you came in here, your restorers came in here, and they started looking at the ceilings to find out how we match all this up. You find out, no, this probably wasn't used as a restroom originally.
That's right. And we have very little in the way of writings that let us know ancillary spaces like storerooms or restrooms. So, but we do know that this space was not a restroom. We have pretty good evidence of what spaces were in the building, and this obviously was not a restroom.
Well, I mean, you can tell by marble up to about 7 feet.
Correct.
And then you look at this once again, this grand ceiling. Look at the features on this ceiling. So it's still incumbent upon you to bring this back to, if your goal is to bring it back to its original condition, to do the restrooms as well.
That's right, because at some point it may be decided that this room no longer serves well as a restroom and it becomes something else, but we want to make sure we have the historic fabric corrected to make sure that it no.
Yeah. Well, I would call this a master bathroom. After you. Well, Richard, on the main floor now, in the new West Wing, this is committee room 122. It's used for routine committee hearings. This room and the one next to it used to be one long room where the Supreme Court used to, that was their chambers. It was like their apartments.
That's right. This is their personal chambers when they came to Springfield, when they were here, doing their hearings. They stayed what was then Pekinard called the basement, was the first floor.
Pekinard is the original architect.
He's the original architect for the building, correct.
Okay.
And so he had this plan as the basement. W.W. Boyington out of Chicago made this the first floor. Pekinard passed away during the construction of this building, and the commissioners in Illinois decided they elected Boyington the next architect, and he converted the basement to the first floor. The justice, their private chambers would have been here.
More recently, it's a committee room, and people who know this room would know that it was on a level. It was like raked. It was on a level, wasn't it?
Correct.
So that the committee could put their tables either at a higher or lower point, whatever they wanted to orient the room, I guess, huh?
Yeah, and the issue with that is that it's not handicap accessible, so we made the entire room flat again. And this allows them some flexibility in how they want to orient their desk based on the size of the hearing or just their personal preference.
Okay, and so that's why the chairs are all just helter-skelter here, because they're going to want to put them where they want to put them.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
As we look over here, there used to be a wall here, and it's gone.
That's right. We've moved this wall back. Because we're allowing flexibility in how this room is laid out, we wanted to create a walkway for people who are entering the hearing, either coming or going, without disturbing the proceedings, that they could walk down this walkway in and out one of the other doors.
Okay. And again, if we look up, these remarkable chandeliers in this tiny room compared to the one we saw recently, 3 of these, and again, these were made absolutely as duplicates to the ones that were here originally, and they are gorgeous. What a job.
And of course, along the wall, we also see the stenciling that was found through the investigative study by our decorative painting subcontractor.
And you're talking about this green border here?
That's correct.
Wow. Okay. That was the committee meeting room that we were just in, you enter the main west wing entrance from that, and this is, if you're coming in from the outside, this is the first thing you see. And as you can look around, you can see that there was a tremendous amount to do to clean all of the remarkable detail and the features and the marble that go into a Capitol building. It was dingy before. It was very dingy.
It was, and we created openings, windows that were covered up. We took off the plaster there, refinished those windows. So really, this is the building, this is the space that would have looked like when you walked in the 1880s.
The window we're looking at right now, you couldn't even see. It was covered.
It was covered up with plaster, correct.
It's gorgeous. And that's the original glass. So that's perfect, just perfect. Also, if we look at these pillars, and let's keep that camera moving, keep going in a circle here for us. We're going to look at some of these marble pillars. This, for instance, this one that I'm on here, this was not a marble pillar before, but there were marble pillars here that you wanted to match.
Right. So what these pillars are here, when they had the state library on the 3rd floor, they were cast iron columns to help support the weight of the books. So these were 2 cast iron columns that were installed about 1905 or 1910. And since they weren't fireproofed, during this project we had to fireproof them to protect the steel, and then we wrapped it in a skin that matched the columns that are just to the east. Correct.
So this was it started out as a fireproofing job, but then you said, doesn't look like the rest of the building. Got to make it look like the rest of the building. So a remarkable amount of detail. This is cool too, because if you go down into the tunnel that takes you through the basement and over to the Stratton building under the road, for instance, this stairway was here, but it didn't look like this, did it?
That's correct. It looked very much like the Stratton tunnel itself, with the bluish gray subway tile. Came up and the wall of that subway tile wrapped the walls here. We removed all that, removed the tile that was on the floor, and created what is certainly much more appropriate to the building.
Yeah, and you can tell when you look at these marble patterns, for instance, this color, the black, and this, it all matches this entrance.
The banding of the rest of the first floor.
Tremendous. Let's go take a look at the basement, because so much of the work went on underground, didn't it?
It did.
Richard, we mentioned the basement. This basement is a hoot because it's actually right here where the West Wing, the new West Wing begins. There's a cross of tunnels. One goes to the North Wing, to the South Wing, to the East Wing. And if we look up, this is what the basement looked like under the entire building before. Or maybe not even this good.
That's right. Actually, we've cleaned it up quite a bit. As we began to take things out that served the West Wing, we took them back to their source, which cleaned out some of the North, South, and East. But it's tremendous the difference between what still exists in these other 3 wings and what we're able to accomplish in the West Wing by moving all the utilities underground.
Yeah, and we mentioned it, but we've shown mostly the cosmetic part of this. But really the project was started because of heating and air conditioning and the utility of the building, which had to be upgraded.
That's right. Yeah, the main purpose of the building is mechanical upgrades, electrical, plumbing, life safety, and ADA. So the entire wing now is fully sprinkled. We added an extra stairway from the 4th floor all the way to the basement. We extended an existing stairway to the basement. All new electrical, all new plumbing, and all new mechanicals.
Yeah, yeah. It's good for about 100 years now, right?
At least. I think the only thing we'll be changing out maybe is some carpet.
And then you said to yourself, well, hey, as long as we're doing all this, we got to close it to get people out of there. Let's restore the cosmetic stuff as well, the paint, the plaster, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I use the term cosmetic. I think this is really, it's an architectural restoration. So I think cosmetic might not be the right word.
No, that was my word, not yours. So,
I understand, but it really is a trying to bring the building back to this period of significance, and that is an architectural, it's just as important as a mechanical electrical upgrade, is the architectural restoration of this building.
While we're down here, we can see what you've attempted to do in this restoration. If we look at the bricks, for instance, these were all original. If they're not original, you found bricks to match the original.
Yeah, whenever we had to cover up holes, we used existing brick so that you couldn't tell that it was a repair. But yeah, all these were original. When we found them, they were covered with lead paint. They were behind several layers of walls. So we've done a complete tuck pointing of every joint. We've cleaned all the lead off the brick, fully cleaned all the brick. Yeah. So really what you see now is what the building would have looked like in the 1880s.
All the lead's gone, and asbestos.
Correct.
Tons and tons and tons of asbestos gone.
Correct. Yeah, in fact, we had a project just before we got started with this construction project to remove the asbestos just in the attic. And so that gave us the space we needed, the stage, to do the west wing construction. And then we removed the asbestos in the rest of the wing. So
you wonder how they plan on, when they build a Capitol building, something of this magnitude and this weight, you wonder how did they plan to keep this thing from sinking? And we can tell how they planned it right over here. This limestone, these blocks of limestone go down how many feet?
25.5 feet, and they're sitting directly on bedrock.
Right, bedrock.
And these walls are 17 feet thick too, so they are supporting the weight of the dome. And just as a reference, the ironwork in the dome itself, just the ironwork, is about 450,000 pounds. So that's just what's on the very top of the building. You can't imagine a load-bearing masonry structure, how heavy the rest of the building is.
Yeah, oh my goodness. And in addition to all this that we're seeing here and all the work, the asbestos and the tuck pointing and the removal of lead paint, in the process of making this work from a utility point of view, you had to remove 18 inches under the regular basement floor.
That's right. Where we're standing at now is what we call 0-0. It's what we based all of the elevations for the west wing on. Yeah. And the backside, the extreme west, was 18 inches higher than where we're standing right now. And that didn't meet our ADA requirements. So we lowered everything down to be at the same elevation, which meant taking out 18 inches of grade on the backside of the west side of the building.
Well, that's got to be our next stop. We got to see that.
Perfect. So what we're looking at here, Mark, is where the original floor line used to be when we started this renovation project, and it's up about 18 inches from where the floor is now. We removed the concrete and the grade that was here to put all the utilities underground, and then to keep consistent with our goal of meeting ADA, which is make everything on the same elevation. So that's where that would have occurred.
And all the utilities are underground.
Correct.
And it gave you an ability to expose these bricks, the original bricks that were here, and make usable office space out of it.
That's correct. So there was a lay-in ceiling. This used to be a dining area. It was very dark, very dank.
It's the press area now.
It's the press area. It's their press offices. So we've removed the lay-in ceiling that was here, removed all the utilities that were up in that ceiling, put them all underground, and now the only thing you see up above is sprinkler pipe and lighting.
Okay, Richard, we're in the north wing on the main floor, and I bring you here because I want to contrast this to the finished west wing. And we're looking at a panel right now that was painted over goodness knows how many years ago. These panels were actually part of the portraits of the presidents of the United States.
That's right. The north and south corridors have former presidents all along the corridors. The east and west don't, so it's really unique to the north and south. But at some point, someone decided to cover over those presidents, and so that's what the sort of the grayish pink you see now. But when we renovate this wing, we will of course uncover the former presidents, and it's going to be outstanding.
Yeah, the long-range plan is to do what we saw in the west wing to all four wings, although we don't have a time frame for that yet.
That's correct.
Okay,
right.
we need to get a commitment from all those involved before the work starts.
Absolutely.
And if it goes like it did on the west wing, it's going to take 2 years of planning before you can actually get to working on it.
I would say that's right. The west wing is about 50,000 square feet. The north wing is about twice that. So
wow.
with the same amount of planning, same amount of construction, just means more people on the job. We would like to get design done in 2 years and construction done in 2 years.
Yeah. And we can even look above that panel that we were looking at, and if you see all the way up to the border up there, you can see some investigative work has already been done to find out what colors and what materials were up there, so you can duplicate that.
That's exactly right, and that really helps our process going forward. It helps speed up the process, and once we do the investigative work, now we know what to design to.
Let's walk down this way a little bit more, and we can see that none of the brilliant coloring that we saw in the west wing is present. We see white paint on the ceiling. and in a lot of cases it's just dingy, and I mean it's grand, but it's not what the West Wing is.
That's right, and that's really this is what the West Wing looked like when we started, right? It was the same color palette. Nothing really had been cleaned or maintained as well as it probably not necessarily could have, but just given the resources that we had available to us, some things just went undone.
Yeah.
So the West Wing was a great way to be able to bring that life back to the Capitol building, and again, we hope to do the same in the subsequent wings.
We have a mural in this wing here that is painted over. It's actually windows like this over here painted over. It's a shame to find that done because it's just not the intention of the building design. But you will find these windows underneath some of these paintings, won't you? And
That's
you'll bring
exactly
those
right.
back.
Right. In fact, in the West Wing, we removed a couple of those infill murals, and we'll do the same in the other wings as well. Correct. To reveal those windows.
A job like this, with a building this size, you say the West Wing was half the size of the North Wing. What was the cost of the West Wing?
The total cost is about $50 million.
$50 million.
And we paid for that with bond funds. Yep.
Yep, 2 years of design, 2 years of work. And what will happen here is when you undertake these other wings, you're going to have to close this off.
That makes the most sense because the restoration that we're doing really removes the current infrastructure, and the only way to do that is to make sure the building is vacant, right? At least the wing is vacant.
Right, and then move all those people into other office space.
That's right.
Close it off, put in some temporary walls, probably go down below the level of the basement again because you're going to have to run all the utilities underground again.
That's right.
Aren't you?
It's an aggressive undertaking. It requires actually more than 2 years of design just to plan to make sure we've got places for people to go, to make sure we're doing the project correct, we're doing the building the justice that it deserves. So it really is. Our office is beginning the planning already, even though we've not hired consultants to come assist us with that. Right.
Well, Richard, thank you for the tour. It's been a real eye-opener.
Sure, I appreciate you taking the time. Great.
We finish our tour of the newly restored West Wing in front of the famous copper doors, which created such a stir when this opened because of their high cost. I would recommend that you go in these copper doors and wander around the West Wing. It's open for tours every day of the year. With another Illinois story at the state capitol, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.